Today on So Perfect, I'm going to show you some of my favorite items from the trunk. Hi, welcome to So Perfect. I'm Sandra Betzina. There's never been a more exciting time to sew. The fabrics are fabulous. And what I brought with me are some of my favorites. And this is a jacket that I've just loved. Now this, you might not think of using this fabric for clothes. This is the upholstery fabric I found in the home dec department. And it wasn't real thick. And then I just serged the edges and threw it in the washing machine and the dryer, and it got nice and soft. Then I fused a little bit of a fusible knitted interfacing to the back, and now it's soft, but it has a little bit of body so it doesn't cave in here, and I've just loved it. Around the edges, I took cotton knit that I cut on the cross grain and covered some piping just to give a little detail there. And then these are antler buttons. I always look for great buttons. Good buttons. They're nice. All right, now this inside, this is a little tank top, but it's a stretch hand woven. And so it's real comfortable to wear. And since it had some stretch, I could just turn under the raw edges on the armhole and on the neck, and then just twin needle it. And so it was very easy and fast to make, but on this I did what I always do on any sort of tanks. I ran an ease line around the armhole to bring it a little closer to the body so that it doesn't gap. You know, I do that on all sleeveless things. Now, the skirt. The skirt is a wild design. I like this skirt. So let me zip it up here so you can see. This skirt is based on a Japanese design. It's called an origami skirt. And what's key here is that you choose a real soft fabric, because this skirt, it needs drape. It's got a skirt on one side and a pant leg on the other. And so if you don't choose something with drape, it's going to be a little strange looking. It's a little strange looking anyway, but it's really kind of nice. And the other thing about this is, because it's a pretty close-fitting top, you know, at the top of the skirt without details, you want to measure that pattern before you cut it out, because otherwise you won't have enough. You want to make sure that it's 1 inch bigger than you, or else cut a bigger size. Otherwise, you end up having these little pleats form underneath the waist. All right, now let's put this away for a second, and we'll get something else out. Now, I love this fabric. This is called African mud cloth. And it's just I love the colors. I love everything about this. All right, now what I did with this is I decided to put a little collar on it. So I just cut a little collar freehand, just the shape of the neck, and then I just included it in the seam at the neck, included it in the shoulder, and I have a little piping around the outside edge, and this is a knit again, only this time the knit is used on the bias. I decided to make the collar a little more interesting by putting a buttonhole on it and buttoning it on. And then, you know how all the patterns, they always have these boring patch pockets. They're just boxes. They're awful. All I did was I just changed the top of it to be heart-shaped, and then I put a little piping, and it's so much different. All right, now inside, I have a pair of leather pants. Now, I love leather. I love the way it just gets better and better the longer you wear it. And the thing about leather is you always have to have a seam, well, for leather pants that really hold their shape, seam them at the knee. And then the knee doesn't get baggy looking. And see, I just seamed it and top stitched it to give it strength. And I like to look around for a pattern that's kind of interesting. This one had a neat placket detail on the leg, so I could use some decorative snaps. Now, you know, you don't need any special machine to sew with leather. You just need an NTW needle. I sew on a home machine all the time. There's nothing to it. All right, now, my next one is, I'm going to show you the pants first, because these are kind of a pair of pants that I think everybody might want in their wardrobe for summer. This fabric is called silk noil, and silk noil is the workhorse of the silk family. It can be bleached, it can be thrown in the washing machine and the dryer, and you know how white pants get kind of sad after, you know, a season. So these, you can just throw them in and bleach them. They're really, it's kind of a little nothing style with an elastic waist, but a nice little pull-on pant that you can wear under a lot of things. What I like to wear it with is this. Now, let's see, let me take this off. This is a shirt that has diagonal darts like this, and they really show up because they're top stitched on there. So I'll show you how to do this, because you could take this little style idea and put it on absolutely any pattern. So let's go to the machine. Now, all you need to do this is a strip of fleece. Now, my fleece isn't very thick, so I cut about a 4-inch strip, but you need about a 2-inch of something thicker. And all you'll do is, when we sew the dart, we will actually sew it through the fleece. So I just center my dart on top of the fleece, and now I'll begin to sew. I lengthen the stitch just a little bit here. And if you remember correctly, that was kind of a long dart. And so I just sewed it right through here. And then I bring it to the outside like this. Now, what's going to create the dimension is I'm going to top stitch it. See, all of this is flat. So I will just top stitch it on both sides. It's kind of a neat little idea that you could do with anything, actually. You know, once I saw it, this was actually, I found I didn't invent this idea. I always feel like I need to tell you that because it was in a pattern. But since then, I want to tell you I've done it to a bunch of different things. Now, I'm top stitching close to the original stitching line. Here it is. Let's see. I top stitched close to the original stitching line, and then my dart, it was flopped down, and I top stitched there. Now, on the back, all I'll do at this point is merely trim some of this down, because we don't want all of that extra stuff behind the dart. And so I'll just trim it down on both sides, and that's the end of the story. It's kind of neat. So when we come back, I'll show you a few more items from the closet. Don't go away. I'll change a top pattern into a dress pattern when Sew Perfect returns.
What's typical about Mary?
Welcome back. Today I brought some of my favorite clothes from the closet, and you just saw this little shirt that I did. I love that so much with those diagonal darts. And when my daughter saw it, she said, "Oh, I'd love it to be a dress." So I made a dress, which is this one, from that shirt pattern. Now, how did that happen? Well, for starters, I merely eliminated the sleeves. The sleeves are gone. I just didn't put them in. I stabilized the neck with twill tape because the neck on the knit started to grow. So I stabilized it, and then I just finished it with a little lightweight linen bias. But the most profound change was I extended it 24 inches. And I do this a lot with a top. If I like a top a lot, I will extend it into a dress because, in my opinion, there are not that many great dress patterns out there. So this is the dress, this is the top pattern right here. And I've just put some paper onto the bottom of it so that I can lengthen it. And you can use anything, newspaper, anything like that. Let's say we wanted to lengthen it 18 inches. All right, so I like to make a couple of different marks. I don't just, mark it at the side and the center front. About every 5 inches, I will make a mark for length because I want to make sure that I really get it so it hangs evenly. All right, now let's extend the side seam down straight for starters. But you don't want to make this side seam totally straight because unless you would add some slits. Now, see, the thing you have to think about when you're doing a dress is how am I going to walk in this? Now, I could make slits in it, you see, and leave it open, and then that would work fine. Or the other thing I could do is change the shape a little bit and turn it into a little more of an A-line shape at the bottom. So to do that, I can't just flare it out at the bottom and come into real severe because it won't be right. So let's say I want to put 1.5 inches here on the bottom in width. So I'll just bring it in kind of gradual, and I will actually add a little bit at the hip line on the top, just so I get a nice gradual shape to it. And so just think about that. It's either got to be slits, you've got to have some way to walk in this. And that's the end of the story. It's fun. Now, let's go over to my closet over here so you can see some more items. All right, now, I have always loved chiffon. Now, this is a nice chiffon shirt. All you have to know about chiffon is you need a real fine needle, and you need fine machine embroidery thread. And for interfacing, I use silk organza. And the buttons, these are antique buttons. I couldn't find any that matched, so I used some that were basically the same shape, but had the same kind of feeling. Now, that's just a nice little soft blouse. Now, two things I like to do when I make a blouse. I like to do pants and a skirt. Now, the pants, this is silk dupioni, which we know is very wrinkly. So all I've done is I've underlined the entire pant with silk organza. Doing that, it cuts down on the wrinkles severely. I mean, it's really noticeable. Then, after I did the pant, then I like to have a skirt. And this comes from a San Francisco designer. Remember how I said how I loved incredible fabrics? Well, this one is one of those incredible fabrics because it's pleated and you can just wrinkle it up. It's terrific for traveling. And all you do is you just launder it in a basin of water, rinse it out, lay it flat on the table. This skirt is dry in 15 minutes. I mean, I love this designer's things. Now, you're going to ask, why didn't you make it? Because I can't find the fabric. Otherwise, I would. I did find this little piece of pleated fabric in Japan, but I haven't seen it. I mean, I don't really see that much of it. And here again, here's another little pair of the pleated pants. Just a little pair of pleated pull-on pants by the same person. I mean, they're just so amazing. And then this little shirt is just, I call it half-lined. All I've done here is instead of doing a front and a facing, what I did is I cut a double front, and I find that that lays a lot better. This is one of those vintage feeling fabrics, nice and soft. Well, we'll be right back with a few more items from the closet.
Your pet.
This may be the booth you sat in.
Welcome back to So Perfect. I'm Sandra Betzina. I've brought some of my favorite outfits, and this one is one that I've really liked. This is a double layered skirt in slinky knit with an elastic waist, which is wonderful. And the top is a nice wrap top with a cut-on sleeve and a little peplum that hangs over the tummy, which is really nice. Now, wrap tops can be terrific if they hang close to the body, and I've got a little trick to make that happen that I'll show you right now. See, one of the problems with a wrap top is anything that's going to make up well in a wrap top is going to be kind of saggy back, and then you've got this nice diagonal seam, and all that helps stretch the neck. So from the pattern, see, this is the dot, right? I'm going to take and cut a piece of twill tape the exact length from the shoulder cutting line to the dot. That's where, that's where it closes. Now, take that off. Now, there's one thing. I want to make this just a tiny bit smaller because the idea is I want to bring it in a little bit closer to the body. So I'm going to trim off 1/4 inch. If I have a large bust, I can trim off another 1/4 inch, okay? I'll trim off a little more. Now, then I'll pin it right there at the dot. So it starts right there, and pin it at the shoulder. Now look what's happening. It's drawing it up. So what I have to do, and that's what I want it to do, because I want to bring it in closer to the body. What I always say is divide up the caposis. It's kind of wanting to be buckly there. I divide it up and pin it so that, because what I have is a little more garment per neck. Now, I'll sew this together. And where am I doing all this? I'm doing this about a ½ inch away from the cutting edge. Now watch how I work my fingers, because there's too much fabric for the twill tape or the stabilizer. You could be using selvage. So with my fingers, I can act as a little tool. See, I'm just pushing the extra in like that, and consequently, I don't end up getting any little tucks in it. So I just push it. See how I push it forward? You know, your hands are your best tools. Now, once I get this stay stitched on, now I'll go over and press it. Because what it does now is it's kind of, you know, fluffy and kind of gathering a little bit like this. So what I have to do next is just to take it and do a little pressing on it. And what that will do is when I make the top, it'll pull right in close to the body. And that's it. Okay, let's go back over to my rack and see what else we have over there that might interest you. All right, now, let's see. All right, the first thing is everybody's got some full pull-on pants. And I've made lots of them myself in elastic, and they're so great at summertime or just comfortable around the house. But instead of putting in elastic, I decided to put in a little drawstring for something different. So I have a little drawstring in the front. And then, you know how full pants are just full and not that interesting, comfortable but not that interesting. I decided to change it around a little bit and draw it in at the side. And all I did, let me untie this and you can see, I put a small casing in there. I just created a casing in the hem, made 2 little buttonholes here so that a drawstring could come out. And then I just pull them together. And it's just a nice way if you want comfortable full pants, but you'd like to have it a little bit smaller down at the bottom, that's the way you can do that. And with this, I wear a silk top? No. This top is exactly what not to wear. These are full pants, and this is a full top. Bad. It'll make you look like this. With this top, I wear those little skinny white pants, you see, and that works real well. Well, I hope you've enjoyed seeing a couple of these things, and we'll be right back with a viewer question.
Topical information from this week's shows is available on our website at hgtv.com, or send $5 to So Perfect, Box 50970, Knoxville, Tennessee 37950. Be sure to include the week number on your envelope.
Welcome back. This is the part of the show I always love with a viewer question. Now, this one comes from Linda from Fremont, Indiana. I love the feel of corduroy. What do I need to know to work on it? Corduroy is nice to feel. I mean, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful casual fabric, especially because you can just throw it in the washing machine and the dryer. Now, the one thing is, if you're planning on treating it that way, remember to pre-shrink it, because it definitely does shrink. So put it in the washing machine and the dryer. One word of caution about that, though, I would say, is if it's navy blue or black, it never looks quite the same after it's laundered. So in that case, I'd relegate that to the dry cleaning. But other than that, you can just throw it in. Now, this is the baby whale over here, and this is the big whale. So there are different ones, and there's with a nap. Do you see where it feels nice, or against the nap? And you could do either way, but I like to cut it with the nap, with it going down, because that feels so nice. I don't know, that's the whole reason you want to wear corduroy, because it feels good. So we're going to cut it down. Now, when I say with a nap, what that means is that every piece I cut has to go in that direction. You see, this is the top of the jacket down, this is the top of the jacket down, so I have to do that all the way. And if you don't think it makes a difference, trust me, it does, because the front of this coat would be kind of a tan and the back will be beige. It's really quite different. So whenever it has a nap, usually things that feel good have a nap like that. All right, now the next thing you need to know is what kind of a needle are you going to use? Now, the needle that I like is a sharp needle, and it's an 8012H. And this is not real needle particular. You know, some fabrics I've talked about, knits, are very particular. This one's not real needle particular. But if you use a needle that's too small, what will happen is your thread will keep breaking. And you just want to use regular thread, lengthen your stitch a little bit. How do you know to lengthen your stitch? Your fabric is thicker. As your fabric becomes thick, you have to lengthen your stitch. See, the sewing machine doesn't know whether, if you put a long stitch, whether it's going up or down or forward. So if we have a thick fabric, you see, if we keep our stitch length the same, it gets real small and then it draws it up. So lengthen your stitch a little bit. All right, now the other thing you need to know is pressing it. Now here's a needle board, and that's great if you happen to have that. But you could also use a Turkish towel. And when you press, you see, you press with a nap against it. You can never really put an iron directly on the front of something with a nap, or it changes the whole way it looks. Well, I hope you've had fun looking in my closet, seeing all of my fun things. I still love to sew as much as I ever did, and we'll probably continue with more new things. But look around at the fabrics. They're exciting times. And I will see you next time on Sew Perfect. This is great. Now tell me about him.
Sam is my version of Scarecrow. Instead of a tattered-looking character to hang in the garden, I thought Sam would be very patriotic. You can put him out, well, Election Day,
Yeah.
4th of July,
Tax
whatever.
Day. How about that?
Yes, right. He's got a tomato can for support in his head. That's the only stiff part. And then he's got a wire in his shoulder, but the rest of him is just loose. He's stuffed here with fiber fill so you can see his shape. But you put 2 plant stakes up in his hat, just loose, and stick the plant stakes in the garden, and then he just stands there and flutters in the wind.
You know, now, Carolyn actually made this fabric, because you're probably thinking, where in the world did she find that fabric? She made this by sewing all these little pieces together. I mean, this was the labor of love, but it's wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, let's go over and see some of the other things that you did.
Okay.
Now, I love these. Tell us about these.
Thank you. Okay, you know how you put on knee pads to kneel down, and they constrict your leg.
They have that elastic in the back.
Right, right. So I thought, what if I had a garden apron, pockets, all that stuff, something you can brush off, but it had knee pads sewn right into it. So this is doubled back, a padded fabric with some elastic sewn in, and you just stick your leg down there, and then when you kneel down, it's in exactly the right place.
What a terrific idea.
Thank you.
Did you make your jacket?
Well, I did. This is the pocket for the trowel, a skinny pocket. There's a bigger pocket for another tool. It's got a wider pocket over here. Then it's even got a pocket across the back, and I don't know what that's for.
Tell me about what your daughter said. You'll laugh, because you know how we sew for our children. And
well, I get all the family in the book, and I had my daughter standing in this, modeling it, and even had a hat that went with it, and she's kind of frowning, and I said, well, what's the matter? And she said, well, it looks like a clown suit, Mom.
We wear it. Tell us about this.
Oh, okay, this is made of flag cloth or sport cloth, they call it. It's very stiff nylon, so it holds up very well and it's pretty color fast, but it's tricky to sew. It's
definitely
difficult.
Hard to work with. You have to use the right needle. And
right, right. You can see I've got little puckers.
Now, suppose we can't draw. Like, I'm not an artist. I can't draw. How are the patterns in the book?
The patterns are in the book. They're on a scale like this, on a grid, small, and then you would make a larger grid and transfer what's in each grid, or you could photocopy the pattern up to the size you want.
I like that idea,
yeah.
Going to the photocopy shop. That's even easier.
Right.
Now, tell us about this.
Well, this came from my fabric stash, this wonderful wild fabric. I save everything forever. It might come in handy someday.
At least she admits it. And so you've got a big fabric stash like everybody else.
That's right. That's right. I love this one. It's so cheerful.
And she put some plastic inside, and that could be a good diaper bag too.
It could, yes. This
Okay.
is an Italian vinyl laminated fabric. Just happened to find it in the store when I was looking for a waterproof fabric.
Nice stuff. All right, now let's take a look at this. Tell me about this a little bit.
This is designed almost like a puzzle. I was aiming to have squares of fabric, so you could even make this of scarves or some square design. Has a fold on the edge, and then it's finished when you sew it together, when you sew these final pieces
Now, it
together.
looks like these are double.
They are. They're
Now,
double.
is everything double?
Everything's double. This is lined because it's a slippery fabric.
Yeah, this fabric lame is a lot
Yeah.
easier to work with if
Yeah.
you'll fuse something to the back or some way to it double.
And this is designed for a round table, so it has a very pretty rhythmic edge all the way around.
Oh,
when it hangs.
nice. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this gardening hat, but it went so well with this, we put it together. Let's go back here. And this is a great piece.
Thank you.
Tell me about this.
Well, this is designed kakemono style, which means a long cloth hanging with a rod in the top and the bottom, an easy way to hang, and you can even roll it up and put it away. And it's a blue heron that comes to our back door. When we open the door, it squeaks, and he flies in to see what's going on. So he poses.
Now, tell me, how, if you saw something and you wanted to draw it, but you're not a great artist, do you have any tips on that, how you could do that?
Well, of course, you can get a lot of things out of books, but you also could take a photograph, say, even a person. You could photograph them, enlarge it, and then seek the different areas so that you could get flat areas.
I had never thought about that, how that would be a neat idea. And then this great piece here.
This is a tablecloth. It could just as well be a quilt, but it's intended to be a picnic tablecloth. This one has the southern soft colors. This has northern wild colors. It's designed on the log cabin style of you start in the middle with a square and keep adding to the edges.
I think this would be a great gift to get as a wedding present or something.
Well, if you like the person really well, to spend that amount of time.
I know, this would be a lot of work, but it's really nice. Well, we will be right back with some of Carolyn's techniques. Don't go away. We'll be sewing a beach-themed pillow when So Perfect returns.
Join HGTV's Sandra Betzina, host of So Perfect, for a live chat today at 3 Eastern only at HGTV.com.
Yes, gonna rain. It's gonna rain. Yes.
Welcome back. I have Carolyn Hall with me, and we right now are going to be making this pillow that can be like any shell on the beach that you'd find. Carolyn does some wonderful things from her book. So Carolyn, how would we begin to do this?
Okay, I thought up the shell because I was thinking about projects, and then I thought about how does a shell grow? It starts small, gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, what if I gathered one edge and sewed it to a straight edge? It would just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
And Carolyn mentioned that what I love about it, it takes less than 1/4 yard. So we just need 3.5-inch pieces, 2 strips of them, so about 90 inches. So 3.5 inches, 90 inches, and then when you cut it, you made it a little narrower on the end, didn't you?
Yes, I cut it from the seam, started to narrow here, and then narrowed down to the end.
Okay, so
Right.
just to give you that little different part at the top.
And
All right.
This will gather if you set it to 2 on the differential, and then a long stitch, and then sew. And it
So if you have differential feet, you
Yes.
can gather right on the serger. All right.
Yes, you
So-
can see how it gathers.
Okay, so do a little bit on there so I can
Okay.
take it to the next step. All right.
There you are.
Now, all right, perfect. Now let's pull it out of here. Now you tell me what to do next. Now you'd have the whole thing done, but all right. Now what we've got is we've got this little end here.
You begin the coil,
All
twist
right.
it around your fingers, the
So you
coil
said-
down toward the other way. Coil this way.
Coil this way with the
Yeah.
seam at the bottom.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. Twist it around. So what you're simulating what it's going to look like.
So it's going to be like this.
Yes.
So I want to line up the serged edge with the other edge.
Straight, but keep
Okay,
coiling.
but keep coiling.
Yeah.
All right, like this.
Okay. Now you've got them lined up. Now you flip it so that you can sew it.
All right, so if I line them up like this edge needs to meet up with this edge. Let's get this going again.
Coiled, yeah.
So we'll get the coil going. So we have right sides together, turning it like that. Because if if we didn't sew it right sides together, we'd see that surging. So now
Yeah.
I just keep going.
You just keep sewing and sewing like in the other one.
All right. So
You can do
let's.
that by straight stitch, or you can do it on the serger.
So you have to start out down there on the end. So let
Start
me
out
get
on the
close
end.
down to the end, because the closer to the end I start, the smaller it is. So I'll sew right next to this.
It's easiest if you sew with the serging up, so you can cover up all the stitching.
Good idea. Very good idea. That's usually something that you discover after you make it one time.
Well, that's why I put the decorative cording on the pillow.
Is that
Cover
why
up
you're
the
so
stitches, right?
Another sewer's confession, another sewer's confession. All right, so it takes a little bit to get started in the beginning, but once you get started, then that little circle gets bigger, which it will in just a second. And now it doesn't seem like it's going to get bigger, but now it's starting to ease up. So it's getting a little bigger now. And so I would just continue on and on this process that I'm doing, just lining up the serged edge with the straight edge, and what mine looks like, and then we'll see one that's gone a little bit further along. You see, mine's like this. I'm just keep going around, and we've got this one now where I just kept on going.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we'll do is we'll just continue this around, and when we come back, we'll show you how to join it to the base and stuff it.
Your pet. Monday Night Football, they brought in Dennis Miller, so we decided to give our show a little shot in the arm.
So while Serena sits at home with an injury, Venus Williams has Matthew the follow.
Tennis racket! Yeah! NCAA basketball, big dance.
And you always have to try new.
Introducing new Old English furniture wipes. Each sheet is specially treated to
Welcome back to So Perfect. I'm Sandra Betsina, and today with me I have Carolyn Hall, who has been showing us this wonderful little spiral pillow here that reminds me of something off of the beach. And Carolyn, all these things are in your book, aren't they?
Right.
What an unusual idea, sewing for the garden. I think that was a great idea. Now, we have been sewing this piece together in a spiral to form this little nautilus type thing. And then on the bottom, you just cut this off because it was sticking down
It
like
was
that.
uneven at the end, so you trim that off.
Okay. And then our next thing, so our next thing is what now? We have to...
Then we gather this a bit to flare the end. It flares too much, so we want to turn it in a bit.
All right.
So we gather it on the sewing machine.
And then we have a hole in the top. Maybe we should...
We have to zip across that end to close that end because it's too hard to start close enough to the end.
Because what we want is we want it to be a nice sharp point like that. So let me sew across the end first. The reason I say that is that's easy. That's an easy thing to forget.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll sew across there to make it on an angle, and then on the gathering. Now we were just showing how to gather on the serger by fooling around with the differential feed. Well, I thought I'd show you, if you don't have a serger, how you can do the same thing by using a long stitch, putting your finger behind the presser foot, and pushing fairly hard, because you see I want it to gather up like this. So now, all right, so now I've got that gathered. Good. Now, what's our next step?
Actually, we would fit this in and pin it.
All right, now we have to have a circle. Now, let's say we didn't know what size to cut the circle. What I'd probably do is do this in quarters, you see, and divide this into quarters. And that will let you know to cut the little base. But it doesn't matter if it's actually too big, because we'll quickly get the idea here, whether it's too big or too small, and we can tailor it. So I'm going to pin this onto the base, right sides together, and I'll sew it with a 1/4 inch seam. Now, don't just start sewing this, because we may have to ease a little bit in someplace around the base. So if you will actually pin it first.
Right.
Pinning in a little extra, okay? Because if I would have tried to start sewing it already, I would have too much, and then I'd end up with it not fitting onto the base. Now looks like it's going to come out just about right. But if it's not just perfect, I can put a little extra ease in some space. Nobody's going to notice the difference. So now I will sew around here, around the bottom. And once again, now, you want me to leave a little opening probably.
Yes, leave about 4 inches
Okay.
to turn and stuff.
Now, one of the things, I noticed on yours is that you had this nice decorative edging on there. And I like that. I thought when did you put that on?
Well, that was when the pillow was done and stuffed. I put it on for 2 reasons. One, because the seams showed a little bit, some of the stitching when I put it together. And the other is I just thought it looked prettier, so I glued it on.
Well, it's okay. Now, after I sew the base on and leave a little opening, then our next thing would be just to turn it right side out and put some stuffing in.
Right.
And that's kind of the end of the story.
That's it.
Well, this has been fun having you on here. So just so you know the difference in hers and mine doesn't have the cording on it yet. And but that's a neat little idea. And this was with less than 1/4 of a yard of fabric, which
Right.
was kind of amazing. And just a long strip, 90 inches long, 3.5 inches wide. That's kind of how it began.
And the more you gather, the fatter the shell.
Well, thank you for coming. You've been a great guest to have on here. You can come back anytime. You have great ideas.
Thank you. I'd love to.
And we'll be right back with a viewer question.
Topical information from this week's shows is available on our website at HGTV.com. Or send $5 to So Perfect, Box 50970, Knoxville, Tennessee 37950. Be sure to include the week number on your envelope.
Welcome back. This is the time in the show where we sometimes take viewer questions, and this is a good one. Comes from Joan from Colorado Springs. I don't have a lot of money, but I want to fix up my sewing room. What do you consider the essentials? Well, I know this one. I have a good sewing room now, but I've had some bad sewing rooms. All right, one of the most important thing is light. It doesn't have to be natural light. That would be wonderful. But you have to have some light put in. Trust me, these little plugs in the wall, they are not enough. You need some light overhead of your cutting and your sewing area. And that'll be the one thing that you'll be so glad I told you about. The next thing is, at home, I have a real comfortable chair with a standing light next to it, a real good standing light, so I can do some hand sewing there, and that works out real well. Then the next most important thing, I think, is a cutting surface. Because if you've been cutting on the kitchen table or on the floor, you are going to appreciate this. Now, the height that this one is, and the one that I like too, is 31 to 32 inches off the floor. Now, the width, this one's 47 inches. You may not have enough for this, enough room for this. The first one I ever made, I thought, well, 60-inch fabric, I'm going to fold it in half, I'll make a 30-inch wide table. But then that didn't work because there was no room for pins or scissors or anything like that. So I would say the minimum you need is 40 inches, and 47 is nice. But even more important than that is to be able to get around 3 sides. The last side would be nice if you could get all the way around, but you don't have to. But I think it's real important to get around 3 sides if you possibly can. Now, because this table is so enormous, the nice thing about it is you can have drawers where I have pattern drawers, deep pattern drawers that I have divided in sections so I can find my patterns easily. And then you can also store things like interfacing and rulers and things like that in there. Now, there's always a question about open shelving. I personally like a front on everything because I think I like it hidden. If most of us have this little bit of a fabric habit, and we have a tendency to get a little too much junk. So this way, it always looks good. I mean, our sewing area enough will be junky enough without all this stuff falling out. Okay, now, a good chair. That's important. You want something that is on rollers, and I like the ones where you can raise and lower and switch the back a little bit, just because that's important to be comfortable. But rollers is good. This is a great setup, this L, because you can sew here, and then you can just scoot around the corner and get to the serger. So that's kind of a nice thing. And since you have this big table, why not put in some drawers where you can have your needles and everything, scissors. you don't want to be moving from this table too much. I mean, it's really nice to have everything you need here. And then that's why I like a little pressing thing right on the end, not for major pressing. You'll have an ironing board for that. But you see, just to press your seams open, it makes you just slide down, scoot around. A good iron, really important, a good heavy iron that doesn't leak with lots of steam. Spend a little money on that. Now, underneath the table, I have a basket where I keep my pressing supplies, like the ham and things of this sort, because you don't want them sitting all around. See, if you have a basket, it kind of confines it. And then most of you have an ironing board, and some of you may have we have a whole ironing surface, but I'd say most of you won't have enough room for this. This is wonderful, but an ironing board is just fine. And then open shelves. I mean, if you have those, that's really nice. And, just have fun with it. Wasn't Carolyn Hall fun with her gardening book? What a wild idea, gardening and sewing together. It was great. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this show. Hope this helped you with the sewing room. And I'll see you next time on So Perfect.
Well, now all that's left to do is cut the hatch in the seat. Now this one is a little tough. Now this is a piece of 1.5 inch brass-plated piano head that I cut from a longer piece. I'm just temporarily fastening it to the seat with a couple screws so that I can use it as a gauge, because I'm going to have to plane the back of the seat until I get this front edge to align. Perfect. Now I'll secure the hinge for good. To stain this piece, I've chosen a honey maple stain. Now this is a water-based product. It's a little bit thicker when it goes on, almost like a paint, I guess. But the thing that I like about it is that it seems to stain this pine very evenly. Now, after you put it on and let it set for a little while, the way you even it out is just to use a rag that's been dampened with water, and you just rub it until it's nice and even and you get the color effect that you want. And after this dries, I'm going to put 2 coats of my water-based satin polyurethane on it. Well, with a nice cushion, a roaring fire, and a good book, what else could you ask for?
Did you know that poet Emily Dickinson was so shy that she never left her own home? Or that Mark Twain was a 5th grade dropout? HGTV takes you inside the homes of some of America's favorite writers to hear their amazing stories. Homes of Our Heritage, American Authors. Tonight at 8 on HGTV.
This week on Before and After.
We're at the point where we absolutely have to remodel.
Watch this California couple turn their out-of-date dream home into a contemporary masterpiece.
We have a vision in our mind of what we want. We'll get there. It'll happen.
Before and After, Sunday night at 8, only on HGTV.
Coming up next on HGTV Daytime, learn how to sew perfect with Sandra Betsina, followed by Simply Quilts.
If you've been curious about quilting but are not exactly sure how to get started, I think you're going to love today's show. Today we have a guest who has developed some templates that not only make the cutting a lot faster, but the creativity process a lot easier. Hi, welcome to So Perfect. I'm Sandra Betsina. You know, quilts are found other places than just the bedroom today. These works of art can be wall hangings. They can be hanging over a chair, on the sofa. We have some wonderful things to show you. We have a guest with us today, Sharon Hultgren, Hello, Sharon.
Hi, Sandra.
And she has written 2 of many books, actually. She's from Easy International, has written Traditional Quilts and Traditional Quilts too.
Yes.
And you did a video series, I
Yes,
think.
that's right.
How did you get started on all of this?
Well, I've always enjoyed color and design and shapes, and quilting gives me an opportunity to express that.
So you've always been good with color.
I've enjoyed it.
Okay, because I look at quilting and I see these fabulous quilts, but I think, how would I begin? I mean, I wouldn't even know how the first place to begin with the color selection, I guess.
Well, I often tell students that the easiest way to begin thinking about the color for your quilt is to look at the clothing that you wear. Look, those are the colors that you like the best. And then look in your home and see what kind of furnishings you're using and how the colors coordinate. That's another clue to colors you enjoy.
All right, now I can see myself starting, these are my favorite colors, of course, so I can see myself starting with these 2, but then how do I build on this? Because they usually have a lot more than 2. How would I go from here? Would I go a little bit darker or what?
Well, again, look at some of the accessories, and we set this box here, Sandra, because it shows us how you can use multiple colors. And if you pick an object that an artist has put together, take a clue from them and realize that those colors look good.
That's the way to do it. All right, I also noticed, I was looking at this quilt, and I was noticing, the light and dark. How do you go about doing this? Deciding which parts to make light and which parts to make dark and how much of it to do?
Contrast is a very important thing when you're making quilts, and we have a value finder that helps us with that. And what the value finder does is bring out the contrast, dark and light. Why don't you give it a try? See what it does.
Now, let's see how this works.
Do you notice how the dark colors pop out and the light colors go back? And you have to have contrast, otherwise the design and the shapes don't show.
Okay, I see. So you really do need the contrast.
Definitely, right.
All right. Now, I was noticing your templates. Tell me about these templates. How do they make it easier? What are they?
Okay. Well, the very first tool that I designed was called the Easy Angle, and the Easy Angle allows us to cut triangles and squares from the same strip of fabric. And that was kind of revolutionary. Before we had to do other things, we just do from the same.
Oh, so this would be a good one to start with. All right. And this makes triangles like this.
Exactly. So that you can make your block with squares and triangles like that.
All right. Now, what would be the next, if you wanted to do the next one, what would be the next step up?
Well, then people like to make 8-pointed stars. And the Easy 8 allows us to do that.
That's like this kind of a star, all right.
The unique feature about the tools are that I always want to know what the finished edge of something is going to be. So that if I've cut a 3-inch square here, I know that I can cut a 3-inch diamond there, and the pieces will come together.
Well, I think, that's good. That helps in the visualization.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's what that one does. Okay. Oh, that's nice.
Like that, right.
All right.
And the nice thing is you don't have to draft these or do them with a pencil or use a scissors.
That's okay. Now that was my next step. What makes this easier is that they're already on there. Now, do you have to draw it on the fabric?
No. Good old rotary cutter.
Well, we're going to see. Do you have any more of these? I mean,
certainly.
Because I know there are a lot of advanced quilters that also watch the show, and they might want to know all the things you have.
Well, another tool that I have is the Easy Hexagon. I made a trip to England one time, and our English friends do a lot with hexagons. So when I came home, I designed the Easy Hexagon tool.
You're right. I have seen a lot of those.
Right.
Well, now show me how one works. I mean,
the first thing we want to do is decide what size hexagon we're going to use.
Well, I don't think I should start with the hexagon. I'm kind of elementary. I better start with the Easy
All right, let's go back to the squares and triangles. Okay. What I've done is I've cut 2 strips of fabric, and the fabric is 3 inches wide, the dark piece and then the light piece.
All right, now how did you know to cut it 3 inches wide?
I used the ruler, just a regular ruler, and used the rotary cutter.
Oh, I see, because I want to end up with a 3-inch piece.
Exactly.
Okay, all right.
So after cutting the strips and putting them right sides together, then I simply take the Easy Angle and set it onto the fabric, and when I set it there, it shows me that this strip is 3 inches because we have a nice 3-inch mark right there.
Now, this would be the kind of thing your book would tell, to cut 3 inches, because I was,
Exactly.
I've got you. Okay, all
okay.
right, so I see, you line
So
it
then
up.
we simply slide it over to the left. Now, when I slide it to the left, you'll notice that I have a triangle and my seam allowance, and that's what's important. If I go too far, I've lost my seam allowance. So you must come back, put the 3 in the corner, and then make the first cut. And the first cut just cuts right down along the diagonal, and that's ready to stitch.
Now, there's one thing, though. I see this has a pointed end, and this has a little squared off end.
Right. What we've done is added the seam allowance to the edge of the tool, and if we had a peak up there, then we would have to cut a strip that was 3 7/8 inch as an example.
I see,
and so by not having that peak, we're able to cut it.
Perfect. Okay, perfect.
Right.
Can you ever cut more than two thicknesses? Because I think there are going to be a lot of little pieces.
Well, you can cut 4, but when we're
Okay.
doing quilting, I like to stay with no more than 4 because then the accuracy is good.
shifts.
There's not going to be any shifting. That's right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I think we're going to be putting these together. I'm kind of anxious to see how this all goes together. So we'll take a quick break. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Oh, I think this is neat.
Next time, call an expert. Call Roto-Rooter, America's neighborhood plumber.
Thank you, and welcome again to the Muppet Show.
It was the zaniest show on television.
Would you sing a song just for moi?
Introducing the one and only, the original, the best of the Muppet Show. Now on home video.
Ladies and gentlemen. All right, so my typing is bad.
Call this toll-free number now, and we'll send your first Muppets video. Use your credit card, and we'll throw in a second video. More Muppet Mania, featuring your favorite stars.
Doesn't look like a princess to me.
Watch it, hardware.
That's 2 complete, uncut Muppet videos for only $19.99. But that's not all. Call within the next 10 minutes, and we'll cut the price in half. We'll send you 2 hilarious videos for only $9.99.
Pigs in space!
Laugh again at your favorite skits. And all the moments that make you smile.
Kermit, I am your guest! This is your guest!
I've seen enough. Let's leave.
Then preview other great Muppets videos. Keep only those you want, cancel anytime.
Trust me.
Remember, call in the next 10 minutes with your credit card order and get these 2 furry, fabulous videos for only $9.99.
Wow, this is terrific!
The best of the Muppet Show is not available in stores. So don't wait. Call now.
See you later, alligator.
Call 1-800-697-3399 and get 2 great Muppet videos for only $9.99 when you use your credit card. That's 1-800-697-3399. Or send $9.99 plus $3.99 shipping and handling to the address on your screen. Call now or order online at timelife.com.
We have Sharon Hultgren with us today, and she's showing us how to start a quilt. We're just beginning. So show us, you've got the Easy 6 out now, and that makes some great quilts I saw over there when we came in. What are you going to do with it now?
Well, the first thing we want to do is decide which size diamond we're going to work with. And for this quilt, I'm using the 2.5-inch finished edge. So I see 2.5 there, and I see 2.5 over here. So I'm going to position the tool on the fabric with the 2.5-inch line just at the edge of the fabric.
Now, I would assume that maybe the book tells us this, or your book. And also, I noticed that the instructions are on the back here. We better keep these instructions.
I think they'd be a great idea.
All right.
Okay.
So that shows us, because I wouldn't know which line to position it on.
Exactly.
All right.
Well, we're all set to go. So now I simply hold down on the tool and cut. We're going to cut right across the top edge of the fabric, just like that. Now we're ready to cut the diamonds. To do that, we simply rotate the tool around so that the diamonds are on the end that we're cutting with. And I like to open this up. We could cut 4 layers, but like I said, it gets kind of squishy, so it's better not to. Then what we'll do is take the tool, set it on the edge, and slide it to the left. Now what we want to do is eliminate the salvage there.
I see. So just
you don't have to pre-cut the salvage. Just wait until you start your angle. Make the
that
cut.
might draw up. Okay.
Right. And then you simply lift the tool and bring it over and position it right. See, the 2.5 just fits right in there. So we can cut this one. There's one. And lift it along and cut just as many as you need. Isn't this wonderful?
This cutting board, I like this. This looks like quilters would love this.
Oh, it's
I've
wonderful.
never seen it before.
Right. What it does, it has a cutting mat on this side, but then when we turn it over, we also have a pressing board. So
that's great.
Quilters love to take it to class.
Yeah, June Taylor, she makes the nicest things. All right, so now what would we do next?
Okay. Well, we've cut some light diamonds. Let's come over here and put it together with some dark diamonds, and we can make a star.
All right.
Now, one of the things that's important is that we are going to look for a 1/4-inch seam allowance. And one of the easy ways to do that is I like to take the sewing machine needle and drop it very, very gently on the dotted line of the tool, drop the presser foot, and then we can take a piece of masking tape and line it up right next to the sewing machine.
Accuracy is very important.
Accuracy is so important. So that's just kind of a little tip as to how to be sure and guide your fabrics or your seams so that you are sure to get a 1/4-inch seam allowance.
Okay, now wouldn't we put some, how am I going to remember now?
Well, you could take a piece of masking tape and set it right on there, and that should take care of that.
All right. Now you're going to put them together. You probably don't need the tape because you've been doing this so long. All right.
Oh, it's always a good idea to be accurate. But I'm going to take a dark piece on top of the light piece. Now, another important thing is to remember seam intersections. And so if you can imagine where the seam line would cross with the other one, that's where we want to set our needle, at the seam intersection. We have to leave that open because we're going to set something into that.
Okay, now, how do you remember it always? Is it always the beginning you leave open or the end?
Well, the wider angle. This angle is wider than down here, and this is the center of the star. So it is this side that we're going to be setting the white diamond into later.
So we'll start a 1/4 inch
down. So I'm going to bring it up here. And if you're just new at this, it doesn't hurt one bit to take a pencil and actually mark that. So we're going to stitch right straight through down to the bottom.
And good quality thread. Doesn't matter whether it's polyester, cotton,
just so that it's a good quality thread,
Otherwise you have spent so much time with knotting and things.
Exactly.
All right.
So now we can just lift this up, pull these two back, and this time I'm going to put a dark piece on top of the light piece.
All right.
And match them up the same way.
So you didn't cut the thread, so you're on the clothesline method.
I'm on the clothesline method.
So you would do lots and lots of these first before you went over to press.
Right. You can, especially if you're working with the same color. If you're working with two different colors, then you have to do each one separately. But now would you help me?
Sure.
Okay, we need to press.
All right.
So let's go over here by the ironing board. I'll clip these apart so that they're ready to press for you. Okay.
All right, now,
Oops, can I make a correction? Would you turn that over so you always press on the top side?
Oh, you don't press on the
Then you
wrong
won't get that little pleat in there. Let the iron press the piece over.
Now you want this triangle, you want the seam allowance to go to the left?
To go to the left.
All right, so the seam allowance always goes to the left, and you
with
always
one
start
arrow
from the
up
top.
and the 2 arrows
All
down,
right,
and it'll be just perfect.
Okay.
And if you'll do the other one.
All right.
Now you'll notice that these are different. There you go.
Now now why is it I have to keep doing it to the left? I mean, I would think I do one to the left, one to the right, so they join.
No. We want those seams to pinwheel around. The piece that I've already done, Sandra, do you see how the seams are pinwheeling around?
I see.
And that makes quilting much easier later. And also with the seams going that way, when we have to put this white piece setting in, the seam allowance is out of our way.
I see. That's perfect. I better do it your way. Okay, seam allowance going to the left. All right.
Now, we have a dark one here and a light one here, so we need to add another dark one. And to do that, all we have to do is set the dark one on top, just like this. And notice how nicely they match.
And your books tell us to put that dark one on the top.
That's right. And now we'll begin stitching.
Now, did you start right on the seam?
We can start right on the seam there and come all the way through.
So the 1/4 inch thing only applies when you put the first two together?
Except now we're coming down here to the bottom, so we need to stop a 1/4 inch from the edge.
All right. Okay.
One more stitch and we should have it.
So in the beginning, you start a 1/4 inch from the end, from the top, and the end you do a 1/4 inch from the bottom.
Right.
All right, now, you know, what I'll do is I'll go over and press it right this time. When we come back, we're going to begin joining this so you can see how it will become a quilt. All right, I'll do this. Press it.
What do you think you're doing?
No, seriously.
What exactly are you watching? The same thing you watched when you was
a little kid?
It's kind of
dumb. But there's something so much better. You
What are they watching?
It's called
Cartoon
Fridays.
It's on every weekend.
Cartoon Network. A whole night of
Cartoons you know.
And cartoons
You don't know. Cartoons
you know.
Cartoons you don't know. And we'd like to think
that all of them are better than what I used to
watch them.
Cartoons Rad. Only on
Cartoon
Network.
You with us?
You won't learn anything.
we promise.
Gee.
Hotel burns out of control.
Whoever did this deliberately done it to the people.
You can't leave it like that.
The elevator,
You cannot take it down.
not an option. The stairs, not an option.
We're in serious trouble here. It's impossible to breathe.
There is no way out.
I want out now. This is the safest place we can be right now.
Trapped, a USA original movie. July 24th at 9, 8 Central on USA.
Introducing new Old English furniture wipes. Each sheet is specially treated to remove dust, leaving a no build-up shine. No wonder furniture that needs to stay beautiful loves Old English. Old English furniture wipes. Your furniture's new love.
Hi, I'm Wilford Brimley, and I've had diabetes for about 20 years. I stay active and I feel pretty good most of the time. See, I do a few simple things now. I'm not perfect, but I try and watch my diet and exercise, and I check my blood sugar. And I get all my diabetic testing supplies from Liberty Medical. If you're 65 or over and on Medicare, call Liberty. They can help you live a better life. Hundreds of thousands of people trust Liberty. They're the nation's leader in home delivery of diabetic testing supplies. Bring everything you need right to your door. Fill out your insurance forms, even bill Medicare or your insurance company, and you pay no money up front. Oh, and they carry all the brands. If you have diabetes, you check your blood sugar and you check it off, and there's no reason not to. And call Liberty. They can help you live a better life.
To put the thrill in your grilled cheese sandwich, put your finger on buttered Pam. And for your popcorn, it's a great alternative to butter or margarine, giving it the finishing touch it deserves. Butter Pam really cooks.
Today we have with us someone who's showing us how to make a 6-point star quilt. And she's done it with templates, Sharon Holtgren. And we've started, let me show you what we've done till now so you can see how we're doing. We started out cutting the first diamond, cut all the diamonds. She showed us how we do it with the templates, and that's wonderful. And then we joined the two pieces together in a seam, a 1/4-inch seam. You showed me the importance of accuracy, and then I pressed everything to the left from the top side, which was very interesting. And my seam allowance is always going to the left. Then we joined the third piece. Now I'm a little concerned though about the third piece because I noticed that my point is not at the end. It's about a 1/4-inch back. And that, how's that going? Won't that mess it up?
Oh, that's exactly where you want it, because you notice that from that point and out to the edge of the fabric, you have a 1/4 inch, and that becomes the seam allowance for joining the two halves together. So that when you bring these two halves together, you will have, it'll match perfectly.
All right, so this turns out, that's how they all go together so perfectly.
Yes.
All right, now I see that. Now I'm looking at this one with all the white. How do I join the white into these pieces?
We can take a piece of white.
All right, okay.
Why don't you just, there, I can take this one.
All right. Now.
And what we want to do next is simply lay this white diamond. Now you notice that the diamond is exactly the same size as the diamonds in the star. So we'll lay it right on top.
Okay.
And then I like to begin stitching at the outside because I stitch off the fabric right down and stop when I get to that seam intersection.
So I'm not going to pivot because in sewing, ordinarily in the garment, I'd pivot around.
Right.
You stop there. All right.
Just impossible to pivot when you're quilting because you have that seam allowance. So you want to
start
stop
at the
right
end,
there.
Stop there.
Pull it away from the machine, and then I have a little saying. I always tell my students to open the window and close the door. And then you can stitch on the back side. Again, stop when you get to the seam intersection.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Now, I've got a lot of batting here. Let's talk about batting. What goes inside of it? Let's look at this.
Well, on top we have a piece of wool batting. And wool is a wonderful, it just feels yummy. And if you're going to hand quilt
I didn't even know they had wool batting.
Isn't it wonderful?
Now, can this go in the washing machine?
Yes, yes. After it's quilted, you
Okay.
can certainly wash it. And then the piece beneath that is cotton, 100% cotton.
All right.
And it also can be washed. You want to follow the directions on your package because some call for pre-washing and some just say use it as is. You can create different
Now,
looks.
to pre-wash, it won't get all matted in the machine.
No, and it tells you don't agitate it real hard, just kind of put it into soak. Then the bottom two that we have are polyester bats.
They're nice and soft, though, as
Very
well.
nice. This one's thin, especially useful in garments. And then this is the puffier one for a nice puffy quilt.
I see. All right.
And here's the backing.
Would you ever use more than one layer?
Not unless you want a really puffy and you want a comforter look. Then you could layer them. But
okay, now then the back is always 100% cotton because that goes against the body.
If you're 100% cotton to that point, you want 100% cotton on the back.
All right. Now let's go over and see
what it looks like when it's done.
Now, this is one that our you call this a 6-pointed quilt?
Yes.
Okay. And as I look at this, the first thing that strikes me is even on the background, the white part, there's such intricate stitching on it. Is this all done by hand?
Oh, no, that's done on the sewing machine.
Really?
Right.
Wow. I mean,
all you have to do, if your sewing machine will darn socks, it can do the quilting. And what you do is drop the feed dogs on the sewing machine, put the darning foot on, put on some good music, and just go.
And no special needle. You just move it all around. It doesn't break the needle.
Right,
Incredible.
right.
All right, now I see all these, how these come together. Now, I just noticed you have a border on here. Was this all added by, is it important, number one? And
I think it is, because what this is an accent border, and it gives our eye a place to stop. It says, this is how big the quilt is, here's my border. Much as a matting is on a picture frame, an accent border is that.
Right.
It's fun to use the same...
Did it go on by hand? I mean, I can't
sewing
see.
machine.
You're good with this.
Well, thank you. And it's nice, too, to have one of the borders be the same as the background here, because then the stars have kind of a floating effect.
I see. Huh? Well, when we come back, we're going to see more of these quilts all around here. Let's come back in just a second and take a look at some other ideas.
Topical information from this week's shows is available on our website at hgtv.com. Or send $5 to So Perfect, Box 50970, Knoxville, Tennessee 37950. Be sure to include the week number on your envelope.
May I help you, sir?
Yeah. I've been waiting for an answer on my home loan application for over 3 weeks.
It's still in loan committee, sir.
Need a quick answer on a new home loan?
Oh, yeah.
Just log on to ditech.com or call 1-800-71-FIXED. Today's low fixed rate is only 6.990%. It's smart money from ditech.com. Apply online or call us at 1-800-71-FIXED right now.
Attention viewers, time is running out on the most incredible weight loss offer ever. There's only an extremely limited time left to try Premier Diet ZX's 2 weight-busting formulas free before they go on sale at your local retailer. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. Act now before our free offer is history. Like Metabolife 356 and Zenadrin, Premier Diet ZX's AM and PM formulas work thermogenically with your body to speed up your metabolism and help you shed pounds and inches fast and easy. Millions of people have used Metabolife 356 and Zenadrin because they work. But why pay the high cost when you can get all the same active ingredients and all the same benefits free with Premier Diet ZX? Premier Diet ZX AM suppresses your appetite and boosts your energy and stamina during the day so you can enjoy life more. Premier Diet ZX PM is specially formulated to help you relax and enjoy a restful night's sleep while still keeping your metabolism in high gear.
I lost 12 inches in 4 months, and I ate whatever I wanted.
I lost 125 pounds in 4 months.
And it's free.
And if you call or log on to vitafree.com right now, Premier Diet ZX is giving away a full 4-month supply of both the AM and PM formulas. That's a free bottle of Premier Diet ZX AM and a free bottle of Premier Diet ZX PM every month for a full 4 months. That's over a whopping $172 plus value, free, just for calling right now. Attention, viewers, time is running out. This may be your last chance to lose weight 24 hours a day with Premier Diet ZX's 2 weight-busting formulas free before they go on sale at your local retailer. Don't miss out. Call the toll-free number on the screen right now and receive your full 4-month supply of Premier Diet ZX AM and PM free. Call now before this offer is history. Dial the toll-free number below or log on to vitafree.com. Daytime or nighttime, anytime is the right time for Premier Diet ZX.
Building blocks.
Sharon made all of these quilts. They're just so beautiful. Now, Sharon, this one looks a little different than the ones we were looking at before, the point star. What is this one from that first template?
Exactly. This is going back to the Easy 6 again, just like we started the 6-pointed star, except this time we're doing building blocks. And we're using values of color, dark, medium, and light. And so this is one building block. And as they stack up, they really look like building blocks.
And then here's the next one.
Exactly. Right, right.
Very clever. It's beautiful. And you know, I just noticed on the back, look what she used for the backing of it. You know, we talked about nice soft cotton, but here's a print.
Right. It's fun to use a pretty print on the backing.
Let's look at a couple of these other wonderful ones.
Okay.
This one is out of this world. When I looked at it, I noticed it has gold threads. Is this going to affect the laundry possibilities for this?
Well, actually, this is a wall hanging, so laundry isn't going to be quite the issue that it would be if it was a bed quilt. So it should stay nice and sparkly.
And I see you've got all the little curly cues behind here, and that's the quilting.
Right.
All right. I love that one. I think that looks... You know, I was thinking, let's look at this one more time. I don't notice all the quilting on here. You don't have any, you know, like the curly cue here and here. Where is it?
This time I stitched right in the ditch, right where the pieces meet, and I just zigzagged through the quilt. So that's how it's held together. But it isn't as noticeable because I wanted the blocks to stand out.
All right. Now, how do you keep it from moving? Do you pin it in a couple of spots?
Many safety pins. We
right.
safety pin it, and then as we quilt it, we can take them out.
All right. I see you brought one more here.
Right.
Boy, this is beautiful.
Well, this
Tell us
one,
about this one.
This one is done with the hexagon tool. Remember way back in the beginning we talked about the hexagon tool. And so first you piece your flower, and so it's put together, the hexagons in a row, and then you set the diamonds in around the flower, which create a large hexagons, and then they just go together.
Tell me the truth. Did this thing take about 2 months to make?
No, it really didn't. You
Really?
can do this in a week's time.
A week?
A week's time.
As big as this is?
As big as it is. Because
You do it
you're
in a
cutting
week?
the shapes with the templates, and you're doing, then the sewing is by machine and the quilting is by machine.
You know what I love? I love, well, first of all, that's what she uses for the backing, but these are not, you know, bulky in any way. I mean, they're so nice.
They're more like the old quilts. The old quilts were thinner quilts. And one reason I like thin batting is you'll see the detail of the piecing with a thin bat. A puffy bat, you start to see the shadows of the quilting, and so the piecing doesn't stand out as well.
I see. And they seem much more durable than, you know, like a large quilt.
Right. And yet they'll keep you warm, just as warm as you want to be.
Now, that's what I was going to ask. Would the wool batting be warmer, do you think, than the cotton batting?
It can be. Wool has a tendency to be warmer, but the main thing with the wool is that it's so nice to needle because it's buttery when you hand stitch it.
Tell me now, do you ever sew any clothing anymore? I still love to sew clothing.
I like to, and now that I have a new granddaughter, I know I'm going to be sewing a lot more. Yes.
Because this gets me inspired, makes me think about possibly doing something for clothes.
Yes, you certainly can.
Well, in case I get you doing clothes again, I thought I'd show you something on my outfit. This is a hand-woven fabric, but it behaves very much like a silk tweed in that it's loosely woven, and what tends to happen is it pulls. You walk by something and it'll pull. The way you prevent this is by putting fusible interfacing on the back of the whole jacket. So what it is, I cut the jacket out of its own fabric, then I cut another layer out of the fusible interfacing. And you know, whenever you fuse something, you know how it gets shorter? I end up cutting it a ½ inch longer, then I fuse it, and it's fine.
Great idea.
So, you know, I mean, we're still doing it.
Oh, you never know. One
Sharon,
of these
this has
days.
been wonderful. I'm so glad you came, Sharon. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time on So Perfect.
Did you know that poet Emily Dickinson was so shy that she never left her own home? Or that Mark Twain was a 5th grade dropout? HGTV takes you inside the homes of some of America's favorite writers to hear their amazing stories. Homes of Our Heritage, American Authors. Tonight at 8 on HGTV.
These magnificent mansions were once the summer playgrounds of some of the most powerful people in America.
It's the place that they came to enjoy the summer.
Now they're lasting reminders of grand summer days spent in the lap of luxury. Summer Palaces. Sunday night at 9 on HGTV, Home and Garden Television.
Coming up next on HGTV Daytime, get great quilting tips and ideas with Alex Anderson and Simply Quilts.
Hi, I'm Alex Anderson. Quilting is such a big part of my life. It's hard to believe that there was ever a time when I didn't know the difference between batting and backings. Whether you're interested in working on your first quilt or your 50th, we're sure you'll have something to gain by going back to the basics with Marianne Fonz today on Simply Quilts. Welcome to Simply Quilts. For people interested in taking up quilting, beginning that first quilt can be both exciting and overwhelming. The book Quilter's Complete Guide can help you overcome that fear. And here to get us off to the right start is one of the co-authors, Marianne Fons. Marianne, welcome to Simply Quilts.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for inviting me to be here.
Well, I'm really delighted that you said yes on coming to today's show because I've received so many inquiries about the first quilt. Tell us about your first quilt.
Well, my first quilt was made in about 1975 or 76 when there weren't the fabrics available, there weren't the patterns in books, and I made so many mistakes on that first quilt. I'm amazed that it actually turned out to be a quilt. So I can relate to people who want to just start, but it's really not hard, and there's a lot more around to help people that wasn't when I started.
Well, let's start with the definition of what is a quilt.
Okay, a quilt, as many people like to say, is a sandwich. And so what we have, and we've got a sample here, is a top, a batting, and a backing.
Well, let's show everyone.
Okay.
Here's the top, which is where the piecework is.
Yes, and the top, this one is a patchwork quilt. Sometimes they're appliqué. There are different ways to make a quilt top, but this one is a patchwork top.
Okay.
Then our filler, which in my case is a cotton batting. There are other kinds. Wool has been used, polyester is used. I think they put straw in them, you know, when there was nothing else. But that's the filler, and that provides the warmth for the quilt.
All right.
And then there's the backing, and that's just a piece of fabric that's used for the bottom layer.
Okay, what about tools?
Okay, well, you know, it doesn't take a lot of tools to make a quilt. When I started out with quilting, I used scissors to cut out, but now our rotary cutter is probably the single most important tool. So we need a rotary cutter. We need a cutting surface mat, which when you cut with this sharp cutter, it heals itself. You can cut many, many times on it. So the rotary cutter, the mat, some kind of measuring tool so that you can cut accurately.
And those three are important. You must have all three.
You can't have one without the other.
Right.
I've got a pin cushion here. You only need about 3 pins, but I've got a few extras. Some scissors to snip your threads when you sew. A seam ripper, unfortunately, no matter how long you've been quilting, you will always need one of those.
I know.
And then, of course, a sewing machine. Now, in the old days, we all hear about quilts being made by hand, but I think the sewing machine came around in 1856, and within a couple years, every woman had one. So women very quickly caught on to the idea that they could hook their pieces together faster by sewing machine. It was a treadle machine or a crank or something. So a sewing machine, and then just a normal steam and dry iron and a pressing surface.
Okay, fabric.
And fabric, of course. And the fabric is the part that is the most fun, and all quilters love fabric. We go on road trips, we buy fabric everywhere. And we have so much fabric, we could never use it all, but we don't care. We just keep buying more. So you need, depending on what kind of quilt you're making, you might need 3 fabrics, you might need 50 fabrics. Scrap quilts are really popular these days, and I know the first time I did a scrap quilt that had 30 fabrics in it, I thought that was incredible. I've made quilts that have 200 or 300 fabrics in them.
How important is it that the fabric's 100% cotton?
Well, for most hardcore quilters like us, we pretty much stick to 100% cotton. It handles well, it stands the test of time, it takes dye well, and I think quilters really like the idea of natural fibers and natural fabrics. And so most stores that cater to quilters handle nothing but 100% cotton, and that's what I use. I don't have, if you would have a synthetic fabric, then when you iron it might be too hot. So you want everything to be the same, and cotton is the fabric of the American quilt.
There are definitely 2 schools of thought on whether you should pre-wash or not pre-wash the fabric.
Yes,
what do you do? And it's okay. We won't judge you.
I can be honest. Well, people ask me that question often, and they say, do you pre-wash? And I always say, well, you should. Because it is a good idea in case there's extra dye to get finishes off, but sometimes I'm in too big a hurry, and I have a lot of fabric, and so a lot of times I just wait in there and cut, but I always encourage people to do what I don't do. And usually I go along with no washing, and then if I have a little disaster or something, then I clean up my act and I start washing.
Exactly.
But the best way is, you know, when you go shopping for fabric, to get an entire wash load of a dark, a medium, and a light, and then then you're not wasting energy by washing just a little bit.
And above and beyond that, I think if the quilt is for a baby, you'd want to get the chemicals out, just like when you buy a new outfit for a baby.
Well, true, and if it's going to be used a lot and washed a lot, but if it's a wall quilt or something that's going to not be laundered, so really washing is a good rule of thumb.
So that's it. This is all we need, right? Not a whole bunch of stuff.
No, it's really pretty simple.
Well, I can't wait to get started on this. Don't go away. You'll graduate from Quilting 101 in no time at all when we return.
HGTV shows you the must-have accessories of the new millennium, Hot Design 2001. Saturday at 5 Eastern on HGTV.
To prepare the perfect pasta, put your finger on extra virgin olive oil PAM. It's an easy, flavorful way to cook with olive oil. Olive oil PAM really cooks.
May I help you, sir?
Yeah. I've been waiting for an answer on my home loan application for over 3 weeks.
It's still in loan committee, sir.
Need a quick answer on a new home loan? Oh, yeah. Just log on to ditech.com or call 1-800-71-FIXED. Today's low fixed rate is only 6.990%. It's smart money from ditech.com. Apply online or call us at 1-800-71-FIXED right now.
The Chevy Venture Warner Brothers edition with a fully integrated entertainment center. You can count on a remarkably quiet ride. Chevy Venture. We'll be there.
The British Gentry Collection by Thomas Bill. Available today with our 9.9% easy payment plan.
Hey, yeah, 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 yeah. Hey, yeah, 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 yeah.
Welcome back to Simply Quilts. We're showing new quilters how to turn an idea into reality with the help of author Marianne Fawns. Marianne, where could somebody get quilting supplies?
Well, they're really available in a lot of places. The best thing to do would be to find a quilt specialty shop that really caters to the quilt hobbyist. So look in your phone book, under Q, find a quilt shop. That's one place. Also, the internet provides lots of available sources for mail order quilting supplies.
Even crafting stores.
Crafting stores also, yes.
When somebody's going to make their first quilt, what should they consider for the pattern?
Well, I think the best thing is to keep it simple when you begin. You don't want to start on something like a mariner's compass. Here's some simple patterns. This one just has 8 pieces. This one doesn't have very many. They're pretty big. It's pretty forgiving. It's an easy way to start.
All right, and today, what are we making?
Today, the pattern is called Ribbon Star, and the little quilt here has 4 Ribbon Star blocks that are 9 inches. They're joined together with a border. It's a good little beginner's project.
And truly, for a simple block, that looks smashing.
Yeah, it does look good, yeah. I like patterns like that.
Right. Rotary cutting, that's the key. And I think first you should address safety.
Right, well, I'm going to put on a glove to wear to keep my hands safe. And I'm going to cut a strip of fabric that I will then subcut into units for my block.
And it is a razor blade.
It's a round razor blade.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is take my fabric from the quilt shop and kind of slide the selvages around so that the fabric, that gravity is helping me know that my fabric is hanging straight. And then I'm going to fold it twice so that I can use my little short ruler that stretches across to cut my strip. What you can do is line up the fold of the fabric with one of the lines on my mat.
Okay.
And then put my ruler across so that I'm connecting those 2 lines, and then cut off my edge because my edge is rough, not even. I want a straight cut, and I want it to be 90 degrees to my folds.
Okay, and so the fold is on this line.
The fold is positioned right along the line on my mat. Okay?
Now, you have a trick because sometimes it doesn't exactly work.
Yes, what I like to do, if I have an extra ruler, one of the things I like to do is position my spare ruler right along that fold of fabric so I know it's perfectly straight. Then I would take my other ruler and butt them together so that I can trim off that uneven beginning edge, and I know that it's a perfect 90-degree angle, because the 90-degree angle is really important. Take that ruler away, cut off my uneven beginning edge, and then I'm going to cut a strip that's 3 7/8 inch, which is the measurement that I need for my patchwork.
And we'll tell everybody both measurements in a minute. Okay,
this is 3 7/8 inches wide because it's going to make a triangle that will finish 3 inches. Now what I'm going to do, because I have that selvage edge in the way, is I'm going to overcut. I'm going to cut a little bit bigger than 3 7/8, and then I'm just going to turn this around, trim it down to 3 7/8, and our triangles are almost ready.
Well, it looks like a square to me.
It's a square at the moment, but then if I turn my ruler on the side, and this short ruler is so easy to handle, much easier to whip around than a great big one. So there's my triangle.
This is the magic of rotary cutting.
Yes.
And if somebody hasn't been quilting for over 15 years, they don't understand.
Well, it's so much more accurate than scissors. That's the beauty of it.
Right. So for the block we're making today, we have the triangles that are cut at 3 7/8, and the one square at
3 1/2. So
that's
we'll
all we
finish
need.
3 inches. Right.
Okay.
And what we always, the policy we always do is we're going to join smaller pieces to make bigger pieces. But before we sew, we want to make sure we're sewing an accurate 1/4 inch seam.
Okay. How do we do that?
Okay. A lot of times, your sewing machine company can sell you what we call a patchwork foot, a 1/4 inch foot, so that the metal edge of the presser foot itself is exactly 1/4 inch from the needle. If you don't have a patchwork foot, what you would want to do is use your ruler and put it under here, bring your needle down right on that 1/4 inch. I should put the presser foot down first.
Right.
And then you can use a piece of tape or a sticky note or some method to make sure that you're sewing at a 1/4 inch. And then I like to sew a test seam, because depending on how you aim your fabric pieces under that needle, it may be a 1/16 of an inch off, an 1/8 of an inch off, and that can make a difference.
Well, that's what you've done
here. That's what I've done here.
Show everybody.
What I encourage quilters to do is cut 2 squares. These are 2 1/2 inch squares. Sew your seam. Don't measure the seam. Measure the results. So if it's finished 2 inches, that's 2 inches, 4 inches, plus 1/2 inch for 2 1/4 inch seams. So this needs to measure exactly, what would that be, 4 1/2 inches. So if I measure my result, not the seam, it's 4 1/2 inches, I've passed my test, I know where I'm aiming my patchwork as it goes through, and then my day is happier because my blocks turn out right.
Now, I'd like to share with everybody a technique called chain piecing.
Chain piecing, okay. Quilters are not patient. We like to do things as fast as possible. So with our block, I've got my block laid out here, and you've got, I don't care how long you've been quilting, you got to lay all the pieces out or you're going to have a big mistake. So I'm going to take my triangles and make them into squares.
Okay.
And so I'm going to take my first set, line those up right sides together, put it under my presser foot, and chain this through. This is just like making cars at the assembly line or anything.
I have the next one for you, okay?
Well, see, that's the best way to do it if you have a friend that can pass it to you. So and the reason I like to chain them is it takes less thread. I have fewer threads to clip later on, and I feed them through just one after another, making my smaller units into larger units.
So chaining is simply when you end up with this.
Yes, it looks like a little pennant.
It's wonderful.
And then I can take it to my ironing surface like this rather than in little pieces.
What's great is that when your phone rings and you can make it from your sewing machine all the way to the phone and it's still intact.
That's my goal.
Stay with us because we're going to show you that putting your quilt together is a piece of cake when Simply Quilts returns.
Are you tired?
Imagine the possibilities with D. Schultz Blinds and Wallpaper. As the area's largest manufacturer and installer of blinds and wall coverings, the possibilities are endless at D. Schultz. From vertical to wood blinds, for beauty or energy efficiency. D. Schultz makes choosing your blinds and wallpaper a pleasurable and trouble-free experience. D. Schultz Wallpaper and Blinds. Imagine the possibilities. Call or visit D. Schultz Blinds and Wallpaper in Warminster.
Monday Night Football, they brought in Dennis Miller, so we decided to give our show a little shot in the arm.
So while Serena sits at home with an injury, Venus Williams is advancing to finals.
NCAA basketball, big dance.
And you always have to try new things. You always got to tinker with it, make it better.
The Bulls basketball, look. Why? Why was it so bad?
You know what? It's a very subjective thing.
Next Sports Center, 1 hour from now, with Carrot Top. I'm Carl Ravitch. Thanks for watching, folks.
Woo! Smart!
Change it because you want to. Make it shine. Yeah. Make a difference cause you can. Because it's time. Change a little something or everything. Yeah, anything. Change your mind. Change it. Make a difference. Yeah, you're ready. Because it's time. Ask how, ask now. Ask Sherwin-Williams.
Save 20% and more on your project needs right now at your Sherwin-Williams store.
Want more from a sport utility? Then check out the all-wheel drive Subaru Outback. More ground clearance than a Ford Explorer Sport. More cargo space than a Jeep Cherokee. More miles per gallon than any leading midsize SUV. Add to this a smooth car-like ride and you have the sport utility with more of what you're looking for. Test drive the all-wheel drive Outback, the world's first sport utility wagon.
I like to live big. I like big surprises, big dreams.
The innovative GE Spectra is big.
Big healthy babies.
It's so big it holds a turkey, 2 casseroles, and 3 loaves of bread.
I like to entertain, big time.
Or 288 hors d'oeuvres, or 12 perfect pies.
I love having a whole house full of people.
GE Spectra, the biggest, most accurate oven in America. It cooks big inside and out.
Most of all, I like the big smiles that I get when I cook big.
Cook big with the incredible GE Spectra.
Big.
Welcome back, I'm Alex Anderson. It doesn't matter how long you've been quilting, it's always wise to review the basics. Here to help us is TV personality and, of course, quilter Marianne Fons. Marianne, before we went to break, we chain pieced all these half-square triangles together. Let's talk a little bit more about pressing.
The next step is pressing, and as you make these units, these small units into bigger units, it's a good idea to press each seam before you cross the seam. You can finger press. I like pressing with an iron when I can.
Me
when
too.
When I have the time, it does a little better job sometimes. And the rule of thumb is to press toward the dark fabric so that your seam allowances then wouldn't tend to show through a light fabric. So if you place the fabric you want to press toward facing you, then all you have to do is set the seam. Because that makes the stitching straight. It sort of embeds the thread. And then I just open it like a little hinge and open that out. And I don't want to be too vigorous a presser. I want to be pretty gentle because, you know, it's not wrinkled.
And you do what I do. I like to press it right side up so you don't press a tuck into it.
Exactly. And that's a common problem with beginners sometimes is they have a little ditch in there and that throws their patchwork off.
All right, once everything is pressed and in pieces, how do we assemble the block?
Okay, our block that we laid out, we've joined all the triangles into triangle squares, we call them, and then we've put those units into rows. And one of the things I like to point out is when you have joined these rows and you're pressing those seams, is I'm going to turn this over here so everyone can see that for my middle row, I've pressed my seams toward the center square, and for the outer rows, I've pressed away from that. And that means I will have opposing seams or abutted seams. And when I join these rows, if I turn my patchwork like this, I can lock these in. I can feel these thicknesses, and as I stitch, I know when I open that out, I'm going to have a nice sharp corner. So when you can press in opposite directions from row to row, it's really a great way to have nice patchwork.
I think that pressing your piecing properly, there you go, is so important, and people just skip right over it. They don't think it's that big of a deal.
They don't think that it's a good idea to observe an experienced quilter pressing her patchwork. You can pick up a lot of tips that way.
I agree. Once you have this made, you need 4 of them.
4 blocks for our little quilt.
I know,
okay?
now what?
Now it's taking shape. Okay, you would join the blocks, and these would be in rows too. You'd have 2 rows of 2 blocks, and you would press these seams in opposing directions.
Right.
So when this comes together in the middle, it's locked in and it looks nice and crisp.
Okay, the borders?
The border then, I would, when my quilt, my 4 blocks were together, I would measure from one raw edge to another, and then I would cut 2 borders, that exact measurement, join them to the top and bottom, and then I would measure just like this and cut those borders just the right length and then add them on. And I would press these the same way. I'd set the seam, and then I would open it so that the seam allowances went to the outside.
This is also another important step so that your quilt stays square.
Well, and when I started out, I just put the borders on. I let them have what they wanted, and they were like ruffles. So I learned this the hard way, so you all can learn from us to measure carefully.
Okay, batting. Once we have the top done, we have to consider the batting.
What kind of batting we're going to use. When I started out, polyester was the rule of the day. It makes a kind of a puffy quilt. It's very washable, but as time goes on, I like cotton battings because they give a flat, old-fashioned look, and I like having 100% cotton thread, cotton fabric, and cotton batting in my quilts.
And there are so many different brands out there. Really, the batting manufacturers have really stepped up to the plate.
They really have. And an important thing is to read the packaging. When you go to your quilt shop or you're reading about in a catalog what the properties of a particular batting are, because some of them have to be quilted more closely than others, and your packaging will tell you that. You can also get different lofts. The thicker the loft, the heavier the quilt, the theoretically warmer the quilt will be. So if you use thin bats like I do, you need lots of quilts so that you can keep your family warm.
And one more thing, if the batting says to pre-wash it, do what it says, follow the instructions.
Read the instructions and actually do them would be really a good idea.
Well, this is really valuable information, whether you're a beginner or someone who's been around and kind of gotten a little lazy.
You can get a little overconfident sometimes.
Exactly. We're not quite done with this quilt. We'll be putting all the finishing touches when we come back.
Information about the products or projects on today's episode is available by visiting our website at HGTV.com or by calling 865-694-7879, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. Please note today's episode number.
Tonight, it's a night of dreams and fantasies on HGTV. At 10, Fantasy Open House tours a beachfront home in Southern California. This old-world Italian-style villa can be yours for only $3 million. And at 10:30, Dream Drives travels down Boston's famed Commonwealth Avenue. Your night of dreams and fantasies begins with Fantasy Open House, followed by Dream Drives, tonight at 10 on HGTV.
Attention viewers, time is running out on the most incredible weight loss offer ever. There's only an extremely limited time left to try Premier Diet ZX's 2 weight-busting formulas free before they go on sale at your local retailer. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. Act now before our free offer is history. Like Metabolife 356 and Zenadrin, Premier Diet ZX's AM and PM formulas work thermogenically with your body to speed up your metabolism and help you shed pounds and inches fast and easy. Millions of people have used Metabolife 356 and Zenadrin because they work. But why pay the high cost when you can get all the same active ingredients and all the same benefits free with Premier Diet ZX? Premier Diet ZX AM suppresses your appetite and boosts your energy and stamina during the day so you can enjoy life more. Premier Diet ZX PM is specially formulated to help you relax and enjoy a restful night's sleep while still keeping your metabolism in high gear.
I lost 12 inches in 4 months, and I ate whatever I wanted.
I lost 125 pounds in 4 months.
And it's free.
And if you call or log on to Vitafree.com right now, Premier Diet ZX is giving away a full 4-month supply of both the AM and PM formulas. That's a free bottle of Premier Diet ZX AM and a free bottle of Premier Diet ZX PM every month for a full 4 months. That's over a whopping $172 plus value, free, just for calling right now. Attention, viewers, time is running out. This may be your last chance to lose weight 24 hours a day with Premier Diet ZX's 2 weight-busting formulas free before they go on sale at your local retailer. Don't miss out. Call the toll-free number on the screen right now and receive your full 4-month supply of Premier Diet ZX AM and PM free. Call now before this offer is history. Dial the toll-free number below or log on to Vitafree.com. Daytime or nighttime, anytime is the right time for Premier Diet ZX.
Welcome back to Simply Quilts. We've been helping both new and veteran quilters. And now it's time to finish the quilt with the assistance of our expert, Marianne Fawns. Marianne, is this a good size for a beginner?
a small quilt is not a bad idea to start out with because you can see the end.
Mhm.
And so maybe you want to make a bed quilt. You might want to start with something small and then go on to that.
Just do what you want.
Do what you want. I mean, if something's cute, you want to make it, go ahead and start. If you like it well enough, you'll finish it.
That's right. We've got the top. We talked about the batting. What about the backing?
The backing, well, I'm going to unpick this just a little bit. The backing, I like to encourage people to put a print on the back. A lot of times people kind of cop out and put muslin or a sheet, which is very bad, too tightly woven. And if your stitching is not perfect, which mine certainly is, and I don't know about you, it shows. And so if you go ahead and spend a little extra money, put a print on the back, no one can tell if it's not perfect.
Hides everything.
And it's prettier. It's really prettier that way.
Okay, now
so we've got our
basting.
3 layers. Okay, what I did was put a little tape on the corner so that my backing was nice and taut. And then I've got some light basting thread so I don't get any black fuzzies down under my quilt.
And the reason we baste is?
Is to keep the layers together when we quilt. This would be, if I'm going to hand quilt it, I want to baste with thread, I'm going to put it in a quilting hoop and quilt it. So my little tailor's padding stitch is real easy. I use a long needle and I just make these little horizontal stitches and I can very quickly tack this together. So I would baste it this way, and probably diagonally so I know my layers won't shift. The bigger the quilt, the more a worry that might be.
And I use a neutral thread just in case the thread bleeds or something.
That's right. That's right. If we were going to machine quilt, we'd probably use safety pins. So this thread basting is for hand quilting.
Well, speaking of quilting, you can machine or hand. Let's
That's
talk
right.
about that.
This little quilt is a finished quilt. It's a little house quilt. This one was machine quilted, just with straight lines. There's not a lot of fancy quilting. I think the only kind of fun thing is the window has a stitch so that it looks like window pane. So lots of different ideas. That's a whole subject in itself.
6 hours at least.
Yes, right. Or 6 years.
But look at other quilts and see what people before you've done.
Go to a quilt show if you can. Look at quilting books.
Right.
You can learn a lot by looking at examples that are already out there. Why do you like them? What works for them? How are they quilted?
And then last but not least is the binding.
The binding. And I like to make my binding out of one of the fabrics in my quilt. If I bought bias tape at a store, it wouldn't match my quilt. It wouldn't be pretty. So I've picked out fabric here that would be matching my backing and my border for my binding.
And let's quickly show people what to do.
Okay, what we do is we never trim this excess away until after we put the binding on. We'd stitch the binding on, 1/4 inch seam, then trim away the extra, and then we would turn it to the back side and hand finish it.
That looks pretty
nice. Print on the back and nice binding that's hand finished then on the back side.
Marianne, thank you so much for coming today.
It's been fun. I've really enjoyed going through Quilting 101. I think we can graduate now.
Yeah, exactly. And I know there will be some new quilters because of you.
I hope so.
Thanks so much. It's important to have a strong quilting foundation, and it never hurts to review the basics. Now that you've grasped these techniques, you'll be free to start making your own quilts. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Simply Quilts.
Coming up today on HGTV Daytime. At 9, the Carol Duvall Show creates botanical sun catchers. Then at 9:30, Our Place features a garden party ensemble. And at 10, on Decorating with Style, rooms that grow up as the kids do. Today on HGTV Daytime. HGTV takes you on a positively grand tour of New York City. You'll discover these truly unexpected wonders of one of America's most unforgettable cities.
Newcomers are astounded. They really can't believe it.
Grand Gardens of New York. Sunday at 5 Eastern on HGTV.
Hi, I'm Carol Duvall, and we have lots of terrific things in store for you today. First of all, you're going to discover a wonderful way to add a natural touch to windows. Then we're going to make some whimsical pillows that are sure to move you. I didn't say that. It's going to be a fun show. Stay with us, won't you? Welcome to the show. Well, you never know what you might see while you're peering through a window. Or do you? Well, my next guest does, because here to show us how she adds a natural look to windows is Sandy Renke from Loose Ends. And welcome once again, Sandy.
Hi, Carol.
We always look forward to your visits because we know that the projects you bring are going to be really interesting and really different.
Sometimes almost strange.
Yeah. I didn't say that. But I see we're working with glass. I've been talking about windows, but from the display you have here, what you're going to teach us can be applied to everything from pictures that you frame to candle covers to frames.
Oh, absolutely. Trivets, really your imagination is going to be the only thing that limits you on, what you can do with these after you've made them.
But we need glass.
But you need glass. Glass or plexiglass, but we prefer glass.
Okay. Well, and these windows look like you've been out shopping in the dumps.
I have a wonderful salvage man who calls me first when he finds anything wonderful.
Oh.
Yeah, which is really great.
But if I don't have a salvage man?
Look in the yellow pages. There's always a wrecking yard almost everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And just go back frequently. Keep looking and make friends. Make friends. That helps. Okay, well, what we're going to be doing, this is going to be our finished project. This is what we're going for. And we've left these two panels done and half done. Okay? So this is the good side. So we'll flip him over. And this is incredibly simple. This is a technique that my husband and his grandmother used to do when he was a little boy.
No kidding.
Yeah. And he came up with this, and he just sort of revived it for us, and we've used it on all kinds of things. It's so much fun, and it's so easy. And it's great to do with your kids, too, obviously.
Okay.
So this is egg white. It's just regular eggs. Make sure they're relatively fresh. It does make a difference in how they will dry on your window. Separate the eggs, get that little membrane out. That's all you have to do. You don't beat them or anything. And I'm just using a sponge brush here. And you just goop it up and start getting it on. And kids love this.
Oh, yes.
It's just perfect.
And Mother can sit there and give her an egg wash on her face.
Yes, there's some beauty, advantages to this too. Okay, now, any kind of foliage. What I'm working with is a preserved leaf. I like working with these because they last, and I can, they wad up and whatever. This is an oak leaf. You can get these, they've been silicone treated, so they're real flexible, and you can do real, interesting things with them, and they last. You'd want to flatten them out, which you can do with a warm iron also, and a piece of fabric over it, because they do get wrinkly. So I've got a couple guys that I've already flattened. And you literally just put these guys down in the goop, add more goop. And these, because it takes them a little while to get flattened out, you could, with something really, really flat like a pansy, go straight to your next step on this.
But these you just have to keep working at them.
You just kind of keep working at them, and I'm going to just do only the one guy in there to give you the effect that we're going for. And then we take a piece of handmade paper, could also be a tissue, but get something that's complementary color-wise, and you just pop him down in there. Now, because this kind of a leaf it's thick and it's kind of curly and whatever, you could go for this immediately and keep working him down, and you can see how the egg white starts to come up through the paper. Or where we've already stuck these guys down a day before and let them